Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Laurie at Laurie Art Creations. In this video I'm going to be doing a Dollar Tree DIY. It's going to be a faux wood fall decor round. So for this project you're going to need 2 sheets of foam core board. Make sure that at least one of them is black in color. Dollar Tree does sell the white and the black. If you want, you can get both black. That's fine. It doesn't have to be, but make sure that the top one is black. You'll also need a razor knife and a ruler. You'll need acrylic paints for the faux wood look. I used a Territorial Beige, which is a very light color, burnt sienna, and burnt umber. For the smaller lettering, I used white chalk paint, and for the larger letters, I used Spice Carrot acrylic paint. For the floral parts, I used the seafoam and a dark Victorian teal acrylic paints. I mixed the two to get the actual color that I wanted for my project. You can totally use any green that suits you, but those are the colors that I used. So you're also going to need a pencil, paint brushes, chalk, tacky glue, and some painter's tape. First off, let's measure and cut an 18-inch diameter circle from the blackboard. A tip for this is, for measuring this, would be to tie a string to one pencil and put it in the center. You measure in 9 inches to find the center and point the pencil down, and then tie the other end of the string to a second pencil at 9 inches away. And while you're holding the one pencil in the center, you just use the other one, keeping the string taut, and draw a circle around, sort of like a compass. Next, you're going to print out your wording and your florals. The smaller wording that I used is Calibri, and that's from the Microsoft Word program. I also used the word art from that program to bow the words so that they kind of go rounded. The Hello Fall is done using a Bunch Blossoms font, which is a free farmhouse font download that I found online. The floral design is something that I found online as well. There's a lot of free clip art and such like that that you can download and use for these projects, and I utilize quite a few of those things. Now, using the first circle as a pattern, you want to cut a second circle to use for the backing on this project. Once you've done all that, you're going to take your black circle and measure 3 rows straight across and then draw lines. This will be faux wood panel boards. That's why you're doing this. So you'll score only a third of the way into the board with a ruler and a razor knife. That will give you that really nice where the 2 faux wood panels come together, that little indentation and look. So using the burnt umber paint, you're going to coat the back of the black circle completely and then let it dry. Then on the other side, completely coat using long brush strokes. It's very important to use the long brush strokes and sweep through. This is what gives you that grain look that you're going to get from, that you see in wood. So it's very important to do the long strokes, and you're going to hear me say that a lot in this video. So take note here that the reason you paint the backside of the scored black circle is because the board, once painted, will tend to warp. The wet paint does something to the paper and it pulls it. So to counter this issue, I always paint the front and back of any of the foam boards in my projects. And when you do this, it pulls that board back to a flat position. As I mentioned earlier, the technique that I use to get my faux wood look relies on consistent long brush strokes. I also flattened the brush from time to time and used that chisel tip to blend the lines of paint in. When you're painting, be sure to slightly open that scored area and paint the inside seams. Um, you don't have to continually do this. I think just one time across with the dark burnt umber, and that's all you really need for the seam. You just want to cover up any of that white from the foam board. So then I flattened the tip of my paintbrush and used the burnt sienna to add streaks, and then I blended in with long strokes that burnt sienna. You don't want to leave it sitting on top of your burnt umber. You want to blend it in to give that glow that wood has and that green look. So now that you've done that, this serves as your base coat of paint. We're going to continue to layer the paints to get your desired wood grain effect. Now, the other little tip I have for this project is sometimes the paper would get really dry with the paint. So I would add just a little bit of water on my brush before I dipped it in the paint to kind of keep it moist and so that it would flow nicely. You don't want to soak this. I found out the hard way. You don't want to really soak it with water because the paper will start to peel up away from the foam. So don't use very much water, but use enough that will allow you to have the smooth strokes and the paint to roll smoothly onto your board. Next, I used the Territorial Beige to add the lighter streaks here and there. And I did that with my brush in that chisel tip position. And then, of course, you can turn your brush and use the flat end to kind of blend it in. But I kept it kind of at an angle and just blended and kept working to blend it in. So you're going to continue blending and adding the darker and lighter tones until you get your realistic wood grain effect. You want to get it as real as you can. And it's all to your taste and liking too. You may want it a little lighter, so you want to use a lot of the lighter tones. I think that by the time I was finished with this, I got a pretty close resemblance to what I was trying to imitate from a picture I saw on Pinterest. Now I used the tacky glue and a paintbrush and I applied it all over the top of the second circle. Then I placed the painted black circle on top so that the cut boards and the finish was facing upward. The bottom circle is going to be your base. So once you attach that, you're going to take the burnt umber and you're going to paint the edges all around. This helps it blend in and make it look more like wood. So lay out your design before you paint to get an idea of placement. This helps big time because if you don't have something in the right place and you're scooching things around at the last minute and it tends to look kind of all crammed. So lay it out ahead of time so you know where everything's going to go. I started painting with the Hello Fall inside first because I didn't want to smudge my paint by having my hand rub over it. So you start inward and work your way out and around. Now to transfer my letters onto my board, I used chalk and rubbed it on the back side of my paper design. Then I flipped it right side up and lightly secured it with painter's tape. You don't want to press it down too hard, just lightly, just enough to hold it there because you're going to have to peel it up and you don't want to take any of the paper or the paint with it. So just lightly use the tape on top of the board and then with a pencil trace your pattern onto your boards. So for this, I actually just traced the outside of the letters. As you can see here. Next, we're going to use a combination of the spiced carrot, and I lightened that up with some white chalk paint. And this is going to fill in my Hello Fall lettering. Try to use a thin tip paintbrush when you're doing your lettering. It helps for you to outline and then you fill in your artwork. for me, it laid down the paint a lot better to use a smaller tip. And then I didn't have to worry about fudging and it going outside the lines. So now we're going to trace the floral designs onto the board. So you're going to use the same process with the chalk on the back of the paper. You're going to flip the paper over, secure it with your painter's tape, take a pencil, and trace your design onto the board. So for my florals, I mixed the sea foam and the dark Victorian teal together until I got the shade of green that I really wanted for the florals. It was more like a pastel-y kind of tealish green that I wanted and was looking for. So I just blended enough to get that look. And also you have to remember, once it dries a little bit. Mine dried a little bit darker than it went on. So you're going to repeat the process to add your smaller lettering onto the board. I used white chalk paint to fill in these because I wanted them to be bright white and pop against the dark wood look. You can utilize a white chalk permanent marker if you have one on hand as well. I just appreciated the chalk paint better. It just seemed to really be bright and pop against the wood. Now, once your project is dry, you want to take a paper towel and carefully brush away the excess chalk around the letters, the outsides of the letters, and the florals on here. It doesn't take much. You just, and it's almost like you rub it in. It just kind of goes away. But you don't want to leave it. It will look too smudgy. So take your paper towel. Don't wet it. You don't want to move paint around. Just use a dry paper towel for this. And then once you're done with that, you're finished with this project. I hope you enjoy my projects and my videos. Thank you so much for watching. Please follow me on Instagram and Pinterest. I'm Laurie at Laurie Art Creations. Have a great day.